The year is 2009, the city, London. In the heart of this bustling metropolis, a crime has taken place at the Natural History Museum. The loot? Rare bird feathers, irreplaceable artifacts collected over 200 years ago. The theft sent shockwaves through the scientific community, leaving investigators baffled and curators devastated. The hunt was on to find the culprit and recover the stolen treasures before irreplaceable pieces of natural history were lost forever. The Natural History Museum in London needs little introduction. Its iconic Romanesque architecture houses a vast collection of specimens showcasing the wonders of the natural world. Among its many treasures, the museum boasts an unparalleled ornithology collection. The theft of the feathers struck at the heart of this scientific sanctuary, representing gaps in research and lost opportunities to study and learn from the past. The audacity of the crime left many to wonder how anyone could compromise such a vital institution for their gain. The stolen feathers were not mere trinkets, they represented a cross-section of avian diversity with unique scientific value. Among the missing items were feathers from extinct birds and critically endangered species. These feathers held vital genetic information, clues that could aid conservation efforts. Each stolen feather represented a lost opportunity to understand these birds better. Their absence served as a stark reminder of what was at stake and the importance of bringing the perpetrator to justice. Our story takes us to New York City, where we meet Edwin Rist, a gifted flautist studying in London. Beyond his musical pursuits, Edwin harbored a deep fascination with birds, their vibrant plumage and melodious songs. His passion for music and birds were intertwined, with the flute as his conduit to both worlds. Yet beneath this harmonious blend lay a seed of obsession with feathers. This fascination would soon take root and grow, threatening to consume him entirely. Edwin's fascination with feathers began in childhood, collecting them and studying their structure. As he grew older, his interest intensified, transforming his room into a miniature aviary. This blend of scientific curiosity and aesthetic appreciation fueled his growing obsession. His desire to possess rare feathers set him on a dangerous path, leading him to the Natural History Museum. Edwin's passion for feathers found an outlet in fly tying, transforming feathers into lifelike fishing lures. Fly tying became his sanctuary, a place where he could lose himself in the creative process. However, this pastime fueled his desire for rare and exotic feathers. His ambition grew, leading him down a dark and destructive path. Edwin encountered a subculture obsessed with using rare feathers in fly tying. Feathers from endangered and extinct species were particularly sought after. Edwin's morals crumbled under the weight of his obsession, blurring the line between admiration and avarice. He was on a collision course with the law, driven by a compulsion for rare feathers. Armed with a student ID, Edwin accessed the museum's vast collection, captivated by its grandeur. He was particularly drawn to the ornithology wing, craving the feathers for their beauty and status. The museum represented a repository of forbidden desires. Each feather served as a painful reminder of his own collection's inadequacies. Edwin's fascination morphed into an unhealthy obsession, spending hours in the museum's library. He justified his growing obsession as scientific curiosity, but deep down he knew it was a lie. He was driven by a selfish desire to possess these treasures for himself. His fate intertwined with the feathers he so desperately craved. Fueled by obsession, Edwin began to hatch a daring plan. He studied the museum's security protocols, memorized floor plans, and practiced his movements. Edwin's plan was audacious, but his desire for the feathers outweighed any sense of risk. As the day of the heist approached, he pressed on, consumed by the intricate details of his plan. Despite the meticulous planning, doubts gnawed at Edwin's conscience. The weight of his impending crime pressed down on him, casting a long shadow over his once joyful passions. The flute, once his solace, now seemed to mock him with its innocent melodies. His fingers, usually nimble and precise, fumbled over the keys, the music fragmented and discordant. He tried to find solace in his fly tying, seeking comfort in the familiar textures of feathers and thread, but even this beloved pastime offered no escape. Every feather he touched, every bird he meticulously recreated in miniature, served as a stark reminder of the transgression he was about to commit. Sleep offered no respite. Nightmares plagued him, vivid and unsettling. He dreamt of being trapped within the museum's walls, surrounded by the accusing eyes of taxidermied birds, their feathers, once objects of beauty, transformed into sharp claws, scratching at his skin, their silent screams echoing in his ears. Edwin found himself trapped in a loop of anxiety and anticipation. The closer the day of the heist came, the more he questioned his motives, the potential consequences of his actions looming large. He knew what he was doing was wrong, yet he felt powerless to stop himself. He was caught in the grip of an obsession, his fate hanging precariously in the balance, much like the delicate feathers he so desperately craved. The night arrived, cloaked in an unsettling stillness. Edwin, his backpack laden with tools, stood in the shadow of the museum. His heart hammered against his ribs, each thud echoing in the stillness. With a deep breath, Edwin approached a side entrance. He worked quickly, his gloved hands deftly picking the lock. He slipped inside, the heavy door closing behind him. Guided by a small flashlight, Edwin navigated the labyrinthine corridors, shadows dancing around him. He reached the ornithology wing, heart pounding. The birds of paradise glowed eerily. He sought the Lodygesia mirabilis, the hummingbird of his dreams. Its feathers shimmered ethereally. Edwin was on the verge of possessing his obsession. Working quickly and with practiced precision, Edwin donned a respirator mask, his breath echoing softly within its confines. He carefully draped a white cloth on the floor, creating a makeshift workspace. He laid out his tools, their metal surfaces glinting in the dim light, each one selected for its specific purpose. With a gloved hand, he reached into the display case, his movements hesitant at first, then growing more assured. He located the Lodygesia mirabilis, its iridescent feathers shimmering even in the dim light. His heart ached with a strange mixture of guilt and exhilaration. Using a pair of fine-tipped tweezers, he gently extracted a single tail feather, its colors shifting and shimmering as he moved it. The feather felt lighter than air, almost weightless, yet it held within it a tangible connection to the past, a whisper of a world long gone. Edwin carefully placed the feather in a small glass vial, a sense of accomplishment washing over him, quickly followed by a wave of nausea. The air, thick with the scent of dust and formaldehyde, suddenly felt suffocating. The silence, once a comforting blanket, now pressed down on him, amplifying his every move. He felt a growing sense of unease, a premonition that something was amiss, that his carefully crafted plan was unraveling thread by thread. Unbeknownst to Edwin, a silent alarm had been triggered the moment he'd tampered with the display case. A red light blinked ominously on the control panel, alerting the authorities. He targeted specific specimens, carefully selecting feathers based on their rarity and beauty. Each feather he collected seemed to weigh heavier on his conscience. As sirens wailed in the distance, Edwin realized the gravity of his situation. The distant wail of sirens sliced through the oppressive silence of the museum, jolting Edwin back to reality. Panic surged through him, a raw and primal instinct overriding the meticulous calm he'd cultivated. He hastily shoved the vial containing the Loddigisia feather into his backpack, his hands shaking so violently that he almost dropped it. He scrambled to his feet, his movements clumsy and uncoordinated as the weight of his actions crashed down on him. He was no longer the meticulous artist, the meticulous planner, but a desperate fugitive, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. Adrenaline fueled his flight. He sprinted through the darkened corridors, his flashlight beam bouncing erratically, casting grotesque shadows that danced around him like mocking spectres. The museum, once a place of wonder and inspiration, had transformed into a labyrinth of fear, each turn echoing the approaching sirens. His carefully memorized escape route, meticulously planned and rehearsed, dissolved in the face of blind panic. He careened through exhibition halls, his backpack banging against his back, each footstep a thunderclap in the stillness. He could almost feel the hot breath of pursuit on his neck, hear the pounding footsteps of security guards closing in. Section 2. The Hunter and the Hunted. The museum, silent just moments ago, crackled with tension. Security guards sprang into action, alerted by the blaring alarm. They fanned out, flashlights cutting through the darkness. Head of Security barked orders, his voice calm amidst the chaos. This was no ordinary break-in. The intruder targeted a specific wing, a specific collection. Edwin, lungs burning, could hear the guards closing in. Their footsteps echoed, each clang sending terror through him. He spotted a fire exit sign, a beacon of hope. Section 3. The Unravelling. Edwin burst out of the fire exit, the cool night air hitting him like a slap in the face. He didn't stop running, his lungs screaming for air, his legs burning with exhaustion. He sprinted across the deserted museum grounds, his silhouette a fleeting shadow against the moonlit facade of the building. He knew he couldn't outrun the authorities forever. They would have his description, security camera footage, fingerprints. His carefully constructed plan, once a source of pride in its meticulous detail, now seemed ridiculously naive, a house of cards collapsing around him. He ducked into a side street, his chest heaving, his mind racing. He had to disappear, vanish into the anonymity of the city. He couldn't go home, couldn't risk leading the authorities to his door. He was a fugitive now, cut off from the life he'd so carefully built. As he melted into the shadows, he shed the incriminating backpack, abandoning it amidst a jumble of discarded museum brochures and crumpled maps. The Loddigisia feather, his prize, his obsession, lay forgotten amidst the debris, a silent testament to his downfall. Edwin, his clothes sweat-soaked, his face pale and drawn, disappeared into the night, leaving behind a trail of questions and a stolen feather that would ultimately unravel his carefully constructed world. Section 4. Feathers of Justice. The morning after the break-in, the Natural History Museum buzzed with activity. Forensic teams meticulously combed through the ornithology wing, documenting every detail. The theft sent shockwaves through the museum community. Experts catalogued the missing feathers, their value transcending mere monetary worth. Security camera footage showed Edwin's face, his movements betraying his familiarity with the museum. The media descended upon the story, capturing the public's imagination. The net closed in swiftly. Edwin offered no resistance, his shoulders slumped with defeat. The trial of Edwin Rist sent ripples through both the ornithological and musical communities. The courtroom overflowed with journalists, curious onlookers, and members of both worlds, their faces etched with a mixture of disbelief and disappointment. How could a young man, seemingly so devoted to the beauty of nature and music, commit such a brazen act? The prosecution presented a compelling case, laying bare the meticulous planning, the carefully executed break-in, and the irreplaceable value of the stolen feathers. They painted a picture of a man consumed by his desires, willing to betray trust and disregard the law to satisfy his obsession. Edwin, his youthful exuberance replaced by a haunted look, sat silently throughout the proceedings, his gaze fixed on the table before him. The weight of his actions, the enormity of his transgression seemed to crush him, his once impeccable posture now stooped and defeated. His defense argued for leniency, portraying him as a misguided youth, led astray by his passion, blinded by his desire to possess objects of beauty. They emphasized his talent, his potential, pleading for a sentence that would allow him to redeem himself, to contribute to society, rather than languish behind bars. The jury, however, remained unconvinced. The evidence was overwhelming, the damage irrefutable. After days of deliberation, they returned a guilty verdict, their faces grim, their eyes reflecting the weight of their decision. The judge, in his sentencing remarks, acknowledged Edwin's talent and potential, but stressed the severity of his crime, the irreparable loss he had inflicted upon the scientific community, and the erosion of trust his actions had caused. He spoke of the delicate balance between passion and obsession, cautioning against allowing desire to eclipse ethical boundaries. Edwin Rist, the gifted flautist, the meticulous fly-tyer, was sentenced to 5 years in prison, a stark reminder that even the most seemingly harmless passions, when allowed to fester unchecked, can lead to devastating consequences. The sentence, while bringing a sense of closure to the case, did little to soothe the anger and disappointment felt by those who had once admired him. The stolen feathers, recovered from various locations, some damaged beyond repair, were painstakingly catalogued and returned to the museum. However, the empty display cases, the gaps in the once pristine collection, served as a constant reminder of the crime, a somber testament to the fragility of our natural heritage. The museum, once a symbol of wonder and knowledge, now bore the scars of Edwin's obsession, a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance, of safeguarding our collective treasures from those who would seek to possess them for their own selfish desires. The theft of the feathers from the Natural History Museum served as a wake-up call, a stark reminder of the vulnerability of our cultural institutions and the importance of protecting them. Security measures were immediately heightened, surveillance systems upgraded, and protocols revised to prevent a similar incident from occurring. Beyond the physical barriers, however, emerged a renewed sense of responsibility, a collective desire to safeguard the treasures entrusted to our care. Curators, researchers, and volunteers alike became more vigilant, their eyes and ears attuned to any potential threats, their actions guided by a deep respect for the objects in their care. The theft, while tragic, also sparked a broader conversation about the ethics of collecting, the fine line between admiration and obsession, and the importance of responsible stewardship of our natural heritage. Museums, once viewed primarily as repositories of the past, embraced their role as educators, emphasizing the importance of conservation, sustainability, and ethical engagement with the natural world. Edwin Rist, through his actions, inadvertently became a cautionary tale, his story a reminder that passion, unguided by ethics and respect, can morph into a destructive force. The empty display cases, the missing feathers, became symbols of both loss and redemption, a testament to the fragility of our treasures and the enduring power of human spirit to learn, to adapt, and to protect the wonders of our world for generations to come. The story of Edwin Rist, the flautist who became a feather thief, continues to resonate long after the courtroom drama faded. It serves as a stark reminder of the complexities of human nature and the devastating consequences of obsession. While justice was served, questions linger. What drove Edwin to such extremes? Was it the allure of the feathers, their beauty and rarity, or something deeper? The feathers, silent witnesses to history, now reside behind glass, their stories forever altered. The case of Edwin Rist remains a cautionary tale about the temptations of obsession and the importance of ethics.